The video begins with a notorious criminal organization led by a man named Liam McCaffrey. He had spent many years in prison, and his global criminal empire was infamous for murder, robbery, and extortion. The scene then shifts to the city of Buffalo, New York, where we see a married couple named Dan and Jessica. They are happily celebrating their wedding anniversary. Jessica goes down to the hotel bar while Dan heads up to the top floor of the hotel. After spending some time downstairs, Jessica eventually returns to their hotel room. There, she notices a beautiful necklace lying inside. She is immediately captivated by how elegant it looks. Suddenly, Dan appears behind her and she realizes he was the one who arranged everything. As the couple begins talking, they receive a phone call from their son. They have two children, an older child and a 4-year-old son named Max. Their son tells them he isn't feeling well, forcing the couple to return home early. The family deeply loves spending time together with their children. Sometime later, Dan takes Jessica to visit her family. There, he spends joyful moments with Jessica's parents and her sibling. The entire family is happy and enjoying each other's company. After dinner, Jessica's sister Nina calls them. She works in media in London and she joins the family through a video call. Nina is happy to see her family doing well. She tells them she is currently busy with work and mentions that their mother had recently come from Ohio. A few days later, Dan starts decorating house with Christmas decorations since the holiday season is coming. He also learns that Nina has invited them to London, encouraging them to visit her during Christmas. Meanwhile, Dan begins working with a private security consulting company. He is involved with two companies, hoping to accomplish two goals at once. He also wants to bring his family along so they can celebrate Christmas together with Nina in London. During one family conversation, their older child suddenly leaves and almost walks into traffic. Fortunately, nothing serious happens. A few days later, the entire family arrives in London. They begin enjoying the festive Christmas atmosphere. The next day, the father brings the family to Nina's home. Inside, they meet Nina's friend Omar. Nina apologizes to everyone, and Omar introduces himself to the family. Later, Jessica and Omar go for a walk together through the busy streets of London. Omar reveals that he is highly skilled in advanced technical and security systems. Meanwhile, Dan attends a security meeting at a bank, while Nina and the children spend time in a park nearby. Inside the bank, Dan begins evaluating the building's security systems. There, he meets a man named Aiden, who asks Dan to demonstrate the weaknesses in the bank's security. Dan and Aiden secretly enter restricted areas of the bank. Aiden asks Dan to open one of the bank's safety deposit boxes. Eventually, they reach the vault area. As Dan begins helping him, he becomes suspicious and starts questioning Aiden's identity. Suddenly, Aiden shows Dan a photo of his wife Jessica and tells him she has been kidnapped. Dan is forced to cooperate. Then, Aiden reveals his true identity, Sean McCaffrey. This reveals that he is the son of Liam McCaffrey, the powerful criminal leader. Sean orders Dan to open a specific deposit box containing a key connected to Liam's criminal empire. He threatens Dan, saying if he refuses, his wife will be killed. Sean also makes it clear that Dan must take the blame for the crime or his entire family will suffer. With no other choice, Dan opens the box and retrieves the key. Sean kidnaps Dan and frames him, making everyone believe Dan is the criminal. Outside, Sean's team releases Jessica, but hands her a gun. Police officers arrive immediately and Dan and Jessica are forced to flee. Meanwhile, Sean realizes Dan still has the key. He orders his men to chase them. At the same time, the children go missing. Shortly after, they receive a call informing them the children are safe at the park. The family reunites and tries to escape, but Sean continues pursuing them. At one point, Sean boards a tourist bus and confronts Dan with a gun. Dan manages to fight back. They struggle intensely on the upper level of the bus. Jessica arrives and tries to help Dan, but Sean grabs her and threatens to kill her unless Dan hands over the key. Instead, Dan throws the key onto the road. Sean immediately jumps off the bus to retrieve it. This gives Dan and his family a chance to escape. Dan explains that the key provides access to Liam's secret servers, which contain massive amounts of illegal money and criminal data. They realize they must recover the key before Sean gains full access. Meanwhile, Sean arrives at Liam's mansion in Paris. He shows the key and is granted access. He plans to use the key to unlock Liam's secret servers. Meanwhile, Dan and his family travel to Paris in secret. They arrive quietly, avoiding attention. Dan takes his family to the home of an old friend named Steven, who is a former Russian military intelligence officer. Stephen is now elderly, but he agrees to let Dan and his family stay at his house for a few days. Stephen warmly welcomes them, and the family begins settling in, prepares food for everyone, but the children aren't very interested in eating. The next day, Dan begins searching for Sean throughout Paris, trying to locate him. However, he fails to find any trace of him. At the same time, Sean begins assembling his own private team of armed men. Later that night, Stephen urgently wakes the entire family, tells them that people are coming to find them, and they must leave immediately. Stephen gives them the keys to his old car, forcing them to escape quickly. Kayla takes the keys and the entire family rushes toward the garage to escape. But suddenly, they hear noises outside. Armed men surround the house and block the exits. The family tries to stay quiet, hoping not to be detected. Kayla starts the car and drives out, attempting to escape. However, the armed men begin chasing them through the narrow streets. A dangerous car chase begins, causing destruction across the neighborhood. Fortunately, Kayla manages to escape successfully. The next morning, the family gathers together to discuss their options. They realize they only have two choices. The first option is to run away and start a completely new life somewhere else. This would allow Sean and the police to believe that Dan and Jessica were responsible for the bank robbery. The second option is to surrender themselves and expose Sean's crimes to the authorities. However, this could result in Dan being imprisoned for a very long time. The family struggles with this difficult decision. At that moment, Omar suggests asking his father for help, but the family initially refuses his idea and does not listen to him. Instead, they decide to go directly to Liam McCaffrey's mansion, knowing Sean will eventually access the secret servers there. The family creates a plan to break inside. They determine the best entry point is through the roof of the building. They prepare a flash drive containing a powerful virus. Kayla, who is highly skilled with computers, creates the virus. The purpose of the virus is to destroy Liam's secret servers and erase all the criminal data stored inside. Dan divides the team. Omar will assist Dan directly. Jessica will stay behind and protect the children. Eventually, everyone agrees to the plan. Dan and Omar climb the building and reach the rooftop. Meanwhile, the children wait inside a nearby vehicle, watching carefully. They avoid the security cameras while slowly making their way forward. At one point, Dan encounters a security guard. Before the guard can alert anyone, Dan attacks him and disables him. Dan then takes the guard's communication device and begins using it. Outside the building, a group of protesters gathers to demonstrate against a major oil company. This protest creates the perfect distraction. Jessica realizes this is an opportunity to help Dan. She joins the protest and begins shouting accusations against the oil company, claiming they have damaged the environment. This causes chaos and draws the attention of the police. Meanwhile, Omar positions himself nearby and deliberately calls out to the police officers. The officers turn their attention toward Omar, allowing Dan to move freely without being noticed. Sean exits the building to observe the protest. This creates the exact opportunity Dan needed. Dan quietly enters the building and begins searching for evidence. He discovers large amounts of criminal data stored inside. However, after a few minutes, Sean becomes suspicious and returns inside. He discovers Dan and immediately captures him. Unfortunately, before Dan can insert the flash drive into the server, his plan fails. Sean prepares to kill Dan, but suddenly, Sean receives information that Dan is connected to someone important. Sean tells Dan that special prison cells have already been prepared for him, where he will spend the rest of his life. Dan secretly drops the flash drive on the ground during this moment. Sean calls Dan's family and tells them they will never see him again. The family is devastated. However, Kayla notices the flash drive on the ground through surveillance. She realizes there is still a chance. Someone else must enter the building and complete the mission. Jessica bravely volunteers. She tells the children to contact the U.S. Embassy if anything happens. Then, Jessica enters the building alone. She successfully reaches the server room and retrieves the flash drive. Meanwhile, Dan is taken to the underground prison area. Sean orders his guards to secure Dan permanently. Jessica inserts the flash drive into the server. Suddenly, she hears footsteps approaching. A guard enters the room. Jessica quickly hides inside a cabinet. The guard begins searching for her. Eventually, he discovers her, and a fight begins. Jessica manages to overpower the guard and knocks him unconscious. Meanwhile, in the underground section of the building, Sean drags Dan along and prepares to execute him. Sean begins firing shots in every direction, attempting to kill Dan. Dan fights back desperately, doing everything he can to defend himself. At the same time upstairs, Jessica continues battling the guard. After a fierce struggle, she finally manages to strike him hard in the head and knock him out completely. Outside the building, the children notice police forces gathering in the area. At that very moment, Kayla successfully activates the virus inside the servers. The system begins crashing. All the criminal data stored inside Liam McCaffrey's secret servers starts getting deleted. Moments later, Sean rushes back inside the server room. He sees the flash drive connected to the system and immediately realizes what has happened. He is horrified. Not only is the data being erased, but all the hidden money, nearly $500 million, is also being transferred away. Sean becomes furious. He swears he will kill Dan and his entire family. Outside, Jessica leads the children toward a crowded public area for safety. She also contacts the authorities and alerts them about everything happening inside. Meanwhile, Dan and Sean confront each other once again. A brutal final fight begins. Dan manages to overpower Sean and wraps a cable around him, tying him tightly to a structure on the rooftop. Sean struggles violently but cannot break free. Dan escapes to the outside and surrenders himself to the arriving police officers. Soon, the rest of the family is also taken into custody, but they are safe. Even though they are technically detained, they are relieved and grateful that they are all alive and together. A few minutes later, Omar arrives at the building with his father. His father is revealed to be the director of Interpol. He informs them that he has arranged everything and secured tickets for the family to return to Chicago. Dan and his family are overjoyed. The scene then shifts forward. We see them later living peacefully in Columbus, Ohio. Nearly 10 months have passed. Jessica, Dan, and the children have built a new life. Dan regularly keeps in touch with Omar through video calls. 1 month later, during Christmas, Dan sends a Christmas jacket to Sean in prison, the same jacket Sean had once given him as a gift. And with that, the story comes to an end. Thank you for watching this video. Stay tuned for the next one. Thank you.